out, the fade out, the fade out, the fade out. Good vibes for Friday. We made it through another week, y'all, and it's real. So celebrate Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, all today. It's happening. So I am going to get started, and I am I'm always happy and thrilled and just sparkly when I think about Furious Flower Poetry Center, when I think about Furious Flower Poetry Center at James Madison University with an amazing community and two incredible women that I love and respect. Lauren K. Aline, thank you for this invitation. Dr. Joanne Gabin, thank you always for so much. And I want to also say this series that is happening almost every Friday, there's been so much goodness that I've tuned in and enjoyed. I want to thank the people who support us, support artists. So I really want to thank the NEA for the funding and the money and the boost that all of us are needing and seeing that we need for art. It's really real out here for artists, writers, creators, inventors, and so we really need support any way we can have it, um, because we matter. And so if you are enjoying this, vibing today, um, or you've enjoyed it in the past, which I hope you'll go back and check the videos out and get tuned into what's coming, I hope that you'll make a donation to Furious Flower Poetry Center. Match the NEA's grant or something amazing and miraculous like that. So thank you, Lauren. Thank you, Dr. Gavin. Thank you, Furious Flower Poetry Center. I think I want to start with just a memory, and bring some names into the room today. I had an opportunity via Furious Flower when I traveled to James Madison University. I believe it was 2013, and I was attending a oasis, which is what Furious Flower is to me, for so many of us, an oasis of Black poets, Black poetry, immersion in a very, very black language and aesthetic and tradition. And one of the gifts of a lifetime for me was that the poet Nikki Finney, prior to this week where we were going to be celebrating this amazing, wonderful miracle of a woman who is and ever will be Lucille Clifton, Nikki Finney had written to me in advance, and she said, Rachel, Eliza, you have to come and photograph Lucille. And I'm only saying Lucille, I always say Miss Lucille, our mom is Lucille, but Nikki said, you have to come and photograph Lucille, and it will be amazing, and make a portrait, and come and see and archive and document. And so um, you never say no to Nikki Finney or the opportunity to photograph Lucille Clifton at Furious Flower Poetry Center. And so it was an honor to spend a week learning and listening to scholars and creators and readers celebrate Miss Lucille's joy, which was often how she would sign her books, Joy. And so I just wanted to shout out that particular moment in my own vivid memories of Furious Flower Poetry Center, to say that the cultivation and significance and their understanding of meaning is really something that I personally hold very sacred. So thank you for that. When I photographed Miss Lucille, her soundtrack was Billie Holiday, and it was quite a day. And so walking after her, knowing that I sit on her shoulders and kneel at her feet and sit there too, and that I'm listening to her voice. I'm happy to be reading some poems today to you from my new book, my pandemic launch of my book, Seeing the Body. My book came out in June, though, like with everything in 2020, it feels like it came out 200 years ago, but it came out in June, my pandemic baby. This book is about the loss of my mother. She died in 2014, and the path of grief as well as the path of transformation that I endured as a daughter and also as an artist. So I'm a little nervous, I'll say, because I've done Zoom, Crowdcast, all these things. I haven't done Facebook Live, so to speak. So I hope you will offer me some space of error with all the technology that we deal with these days. I've been told there's a lag, and so I'm realizing suddenly that I want to tell you all these things and read poems to you, but I will slow down a bit and I will try to look over at comments. I'm going to read some poems to you, and then after the reading, we're going to open up the Facebook Live comments. So if you have questions as I'm reading or talking about things, please feel free to share your questions in the comment section, and please feel free to share love, and I will enjoy all of that too and feel it coming through the screen. Um, so I'd like to start with a poem from Seeing the Body. And what I should say about my book, um, I am I'm sitting before you in a two-headed way, where my work as a creative person is both textual and visual. And so the central section of Seeing the Body is created of, it contains photographs. They're self-portraits that were made either right before my mother's death or in the year or so immediately after her death. And so I don't believe Facebook will allow me to share the actual images, but if you go on Google or something like that, you can find the pictures, including the cover. This is me climbing up into some volcanic rock, and shout out to my sister Natalie Diaz, who made sure I didn't fall out of this rock on my tripod and kill myself. Anyway, the poems are elegiac, but they're also praise poems. Seeing the Body. She died, and in the spring of her blood, I remember my mother's first injury. Surprise of unborn petals, curling red, then dark around her wrist. Some fruit she cut, some onion, some body with skin and sharp seeds. She fed me. She lived us and I. She held we and I. She kept speaking with those flowers falling from her blood, taking her across the sky to death. I remember her voice like a horn I never want to pull out of my heart. In the next life, which is here and here, I gather every mouth that ever sang my mother's blues. She burned, and she talked back hard at God. Oh, my mother, she danced unbroken too. Bale of grief on my back, opening into something black I wear, a life of flesh, like a petal or fruit or burning. I've carried everything, and I'm tired. My mother survived, and but she did not live. She told me nothing, and she was waiting the entire time. How does the elegy believe me? Together we crossed the sky. There was a gate, and we walked through the world like that. She wrote we and I. She was last or never seen, and brown eyes without life, opened her eternity when the air in her stopped, and she was last seen dying. She was too silent for the first time in her life. The spring of my mother's blood, hot in God, the dark, dark, beyond the closed door that won't move again. This poem is called Comedy. I am here before the nurse brings my mother breakfast. I study her body, try to remember if I caught my mother in the dream I had the night before, where the hem of her gown flew through a silver tunnel without end. Her skin went right through my hands whenever I was close enough to save her. She slipped through her name I could not stop calling until I sat up alone in my crib. Embarrassed, she tells me she remembers how she phoned me last night to let me know she was in the morgue. She laughs as the nurse, whose feet squeak in Minnie Mouse Crocs, arrives with tea. We watch the nurse with eyes that will never remember her face. Thank her for the toast that is thicker than my mother's hands. That morphine is some powerful shit, my mother says. I agree with her, as though she has merely mentioned it is cold outside, though I have rarely had morphine and have never made courtesy calls from a morgue. It was late, and I didn't know where I was, she says, because that wasn't death, which means I couldn't have called you from that place. This is my new mother, who has finally admitted fear into the raw ward of her heart. This is my mother, who flew away from my grasp in the tunnel without end, the woman who could not wait for me to grab the white edge of where she was going. I was afraid, she says. Looking over the rim of her plastic cup, she shakes the world, chipped ice between us. Yeah, don't go and write about me like that, she says. I already know you will. And so the next poem I'd like to read to you is a poem called Belief. I'm reading this poem particularly today, thinking as I am deeply thinking and feeling so much these days, all of our loved ones who have been impacted or who have lost their lives to COVID. Sadly, my family, we lost our Uncle Ronald in July from COVID-19. He should still be here with us. He deserved a better death. And during COVID-19, I've also lost another uncle and one of the dearest persons to me, a very beloved auntie. And so this space, which is in seeing the body of the kind of space of the hospital, the space of the nurses and doctors and first responders who are also at this point in my mind living in a kind of PTSD. They're living and walking in a kind of grief where they're trying to save us, and the powers that be, and will be soon ending come January 20th, continue to really not care about human lives, and particularly Black and Latino lives, who are disproportionately bearing these really hard deaths, not being able to attend funeral services and hug family and cry with my family about the losses that we're holding is just so hard. And so I know if you're sitting here listening, it's likely that you know someone, or you've seen the news, or it has touched you in some way, in a very even ordinary way, whether you're taking care of your kids, trying to cook 3 meals, trying to sleep, trying to find joy. And so this poem Belief is kind of about that space and that devotion to the spirit and to the body in the space, the medical space or the hospital space or the kind of sterile space that we find ourselves in. Growing up, since I was maybe 11 or 12 years old, my mother was diagnosed with chronic chronic illness, which was renal failure, kidney failure, which is maybe some of you know, this usually leads to a number of other symptoms and problematic conditions. And so, from a very young age, I was raised in a way not to take my mother's body or my own for granted, and to kind of understand what it would mean to be suddenly rushing to the hospital and not knowing if it was time to say goodbye or hold on or I love you. Um, and so I'm reading this poem for my Uncle Ronald. Belief. I'd come into the room and try to write a different end on those anonymous walls. There was less time all the time until time changed. You know what I mean. You stare at the clock, the vomit-hued walls, that hush dripping in your head until you feel you have never been elsewhere. Your world is a sigh from the bed, a moan, another request for ice chips, water, some news, any news from the doctor, water again. Where is the doctor? I tried to read and write. Over and over, I arranged plain little soaps, toothbrush and comb. From home, I brought my mother's own things, hairbrush, Dove and Revlon lipstick, dolled our darling up, washed her weary face, hair twisted into a ballerina bun, used the pink lotion the way I was taught, rubbed chemi oil along her scalp until she purred, yes, thank you, Rachel face. Smoothed thick cream and pulled compression socks on bony feet we once teased her about. My brother gave Evan, the funeral director, a blanket to keep my mother's feet warm, while I fretted about the type of shoes our mother should wear inside of her casket. But before I accepted her dying, which would be true 5 months later, I kept trying to write my mother a strong beginning. We slept on the floor of the waiting room. We drank coffee and ate out of foil or boxes. We took shifts, stepping in and out of hell. We never abandoned her. We went on and walked around Jefferson Hospital looking for the right food to put some weight on her smile. Her body was the only home I cared about. I watched red and green lines on screens, wrote out notes and dosages, walked down freakish hallways after midnights. Bodies at unrest, bodies snoring, groaning, farting, cursing, screaming, and sighing in yellow tunnels. Blank and courteous, my uninsurable mind would come back to the same idea. My mother is going to live because she is just going to live. And you know, I would begin the list again, revising the mercy of the God I knew. I dreamt in the hideous chapel, prayers drying on my lips. I'd rub balm against my mother's mouth, hold the straw while she barely sipped, shaking her girlish head if the water wasn't cold enough. Then the pain gripped us too, and the irritated drip beneath her quiet voice. I would speak to her, look into brown eyes that I now see whenever I look into rain. Sometimes I'd hum alone in the middle of the night. I didn't know who I was trying to save anymore. My mother was so close to us, I could almost reach her bad heart, the tired organs stalling in her body. I believed and believed if I took more care with her life, there would be a God who cared more than the God who did not think about our bodies, about the divine grief of daughters, about my mother, or the ache in these stanzas, these two thin veins that still river our lives in blood. So the next poem I'm going to read is called Ars Poetica. It's a strange thing having Zoomed or done Zoom readings, in this medium, and I really miss that physicality of listening and holding space with other people as we have this kind of communion with poetry. But I see the comments moving, and I'm like, thank you for the love. And if I look over there, I'll get distracted, or I'll cry, or I'll get really nervous. But I just want to say I see you, and I feel really seen. And so I just want to say thank you for that. So this poem is called Ars Poetica, Things to Tell You. In the beginning, I mentioned Jeopardy and love and gratitude for Alex Trebek and his memory was my mother's favorite show, and I watched hundreds of episodes growing up. When I was younger, oftentimes in my home, which is kind of wild that it's the world now, we often had to wear a mask because of my mother's suppressed immune system, which was a result of the kidney dysfunction. So I'll mention that. And I think there's like a weird thing that is really going to date me and make me, will date where I am in Generation X. But I mentioned this thing called Huggies, and I don't know if any of y'all used to drink these little Huggy barrels. And they were colors, but let's be real, it was just sugar with some color. It was just sugar water with color, and it would be really cold. And in the summertime, they were just like this thing, and they turn your teeth different colors. Anyway, you'll hear me mention Huggies. I'm old, and claiming it, and fine, so I will claim all of that and mention Huggies. And I think that's all I need to tell you about the poem. Ars Poetica. In the evenings, we watched Jeopardy, wore surgical masks once she got sick. Before that, my mother often sent me to the store for cigarettes, packs of Salem Lights. Take somebody with you, she'd tell me, but I didn't listen, only wanted to get back to the book on my lap. Didn't want to share the change with my siblings so I could buy chips, grape now-laters, and red Huggy barrels for myself. We microwaved fluid in clear bags for her exchanges. That's what the word meant when my mother connected the plastic tube from her stomach to a piss-colored sack of peritoneal fluid. Normal dialysis was too much. Before all that, my mother smoked. We would drive late to liquor stores for boxed wine, 6 packs. Then she got on the phone with her friends, kept her feet up on an open oven to stay warm, laughed the laughs she needed to help her get by, get up the next day, and mother us all over again. At night, she did what she wanted, cursed so sublimely I learned to hear it as poetry, unless I was the beloved of her ode. Before she got sick, around the age I am now, she wore her hair short, dyed a color I can only describe as fuck you red. She'd smoke, wearing her pearls, ask me about school and what did I want to be, because she figured it likely cost her a lot of money. Sometimes she'd say, Rachel Face, I need you to go to the store. I'd put down my book or the knife on the cutting board. I'd walk alone in ugly jeans and Coke bottle glasses to Concord Deli, thinking about whether I could be a writer someday, if I would ever learn to smoke, curse, and two-step against a hot stove while my children grew up like books or strangers under my own roof. What would it cost me to make up true stories. How much would I have to save of my life to pay my own way? When my neighbor said, "Hey, beautiful," I was thinking of how to get out of doing the dishes. Besides, I didn't reply because I wasn't beautiful. But his friend braked hard, barking like a dog, while he jumped from the car and ran over our shadows on the sidewalk. "Hey, bitch," he said, and flicked his cigarette down where we were both dark as asphalt. The memory shivered in the skillet, the way the onions did when I came back into the kitchen with my mother's cigarettes, put the book away, and picked up the knife. So I'm gonna take the energy into a different place, a brighter place. Just before I started reading poems to you, I played Stevie Wonder's "As," which was a song that whenever my mom played it, it was like time to dance around wherever we were, living room, kitchen, out on the sidewalk. And it just became this kind of anthem. And even after her death, this would be the song that if I heard it, I found myself crying and laughing and smiling at the same time, because it suddenly felt like she had kind of danced into the room in front of me, and that she was there in the movement of that song. And this song is like one of Stevie Wonder's most brilliant and lyric and kind of poetry songs to me. Although his songbook is all the brilliance and all the everything, but this in particular, in the space of grief, when you think about the score or the music or the voice that can hold all these kind of tensions and paradoxes and conflicts as you try to realize that you have to live and you have to go on. And so the epigram of "Seeing the Body" is Stevie Wonder's question, which, the song is going, and then it's like almost inside the music or under it. And he's like, "Did you know you're loved by somebody?" And one day, when I realized that maybe there was like a book or something that I was going to write, because I didn't really want to write a dead mother poem book, but then I was, this question over and over, "Did you know you're loved by somebody?" would just come back over and over. And so it became the epigram for "Seeing the Body." And so this poem is called "Ode to Langston." Langston, of course, as I know you all know, because I'm seeing some of these names and I am like, either I'm going to cry, I'm just going to start laughing and turn the music on, and we'll just happy hour Friday, Furious Flower Poetry Center. But what I want to do is read this "Ode to Langston" to you, and I want to dedicate it to Furious Flower, because I feel I've been doing other readings, but I feel like we could ostensibly be in a room with some dominoes or some spades and something in a jar and something on the stove and the laughter and just like getting to see each other survive and live and thrive just feels like what I really needed today. And I didn't even really know that. But I should have known that because it's Furious Flower. So this is "Ode to Langston," and it's for all of you. So much family I see over here in these comments. I'm just like, thank you. Ode to Langston. When the light wakes and finds again the music of brooms in Mexico, when daylight pulls our hands from grief and hearts cleaned raw with sawdust and salt water flood their dazzling vessels, when the catfish in the river raise their eyelids towards your face, when sweet grass bends and waves across battlefields where our sweat and sugar marry, when we hear our people wearing tongues fine with plain greeting, "How you doing? Good morning," when I pour coffee and remember my mother's love of buttered grits, when the trains, far away in memory, begin to turn their engines toward a deep past of knowing, when all I want to do is burn my mask, when I see a woman walking down the street holding her mind like a leather belt when I pluck a blues note for my lazy shadow and cast its soul from my page. When I see God's eyes looking up at black folks, flying between moonlight and museum. When I see a good-looking people who are my truest poetry. When I pick up this pencil like a flute and blow myself away from my death, I listen to you again, Langston, beneath the mercy of a blue morning's grammar. And then I will, and you know, I was just thinking of another community that I want to praise, which is the I2 Collective. And I'm thinking now of all those moments of dancing in Harlem and the Langston Hughes house and how it really felt like our house and that Langston had left it for us. And then New York being what New York is, the rent, right? Like the rent. But wow, wouldn't it have been amazing to have those rent parties back in the day? Like the whole ass rent party, y'all. Okay. So, the last poem I'd like to read, and it's called Good Mother, and I'd like to read it. And then if there are questions or things I might say about the poems or the book or something else, I'm happy to. This poem is called Good Mother. It's included, this is my first poem in the Best American series, so it's in this year's Best American 2020. If you have that, you can find it there. And I also want to thank my beautiful sister Camille Dungy for taking the poem for Tin House some time ago, years ago now, and then to get to see the journey of this poem and the way that in the past, you know, I'd write such melancholy and sad poems, and with seeing the body in a way to celebrate my mother and myself, I really could not exclude or mute or silence joy. And so this poem is kind of this, you know, it starts in this elegy, but then it goes to this kind of ode. It goes in a lot of places I didn't expect, which is usually what I hope a poem will do to me. And I feel like there's some people here, I stay in your poems for that exact reason. Like I stay reading you and celebrating you for that discovery and our dance on this road. Good mother. Praise the woman who took me in her arms and wouldn't let go of me. We sank to the floor in the middle of the Rite Aid. It was a late morning, and I walked slowly, furious that spring could still be so wonderful. Magnolia tempted me to forget about my mother for a few minutes. I stared at a Brooklyn blue sky through branches clasping pear blossoms. The limbs shook in sunlight. My eyes adjusted when I went into the pharmacy and realized everywhere I looked, the world announced it would soon be Mother's Day. Something ripped itself out of me, a howl so wide I thought I would burst. The woman near the counter understood right away, the way my mother once understood. I had been born in a specific sadness. The woman did not say she was a mother, but I knew it. She put her arms around me and waved away the cashiers, the security guard who repeated, "Ma'am, ma'am." A stranger rocked me in her arms, so much kindness as we fell over and crashed against a row of votive candles. She didn't say it would be okay. She didn't ask me what was wrong. But her arms put me in a vicious prayer. I almost bit her, almost pushed her away. We held on. We held on and praised the nameless thing that makes us what we think we aren't strong enough. Excuse me. We held on and praised the nameless thing that makes us think we aren't strong enough to know. She knew. She didn't let go of me. Praise the woman who didn't wipe my snot from her shirt, my tears from her collarbone, who did not tell me to pull myself together while everything inside me dropped. Crushed bones, blossoms pushing through my mouth, a word, mom, mom, mom. This broken bird song of mine, with no bird, no wing, no way to fly back through time. Praise the woman who did not leave me like something suddenly dead on the sidewalk with a breeze blowing over its face. Praise the woman who smelled like fabric softener and coffee and the good things I must believe I am too. Praise the mothers who walk slowly through the world, bringing children into themselves, burying children sometimes before themselves, and who defend something harder than innocence. Praise the guts and grace of mothers. Praise their exhaustion and their good work. Praise their wit, their wonderful ways of listening to the world fall asleep on its clean pillow. For the woman who knelt with me in an ugly heap in the middle of the Rite Aid on an unbearable spring day, who helped me buy a Mother's Day card for my dead mother, who knew better than to say I'd be just fine. For you, I lift my arms each spring and wish you a kindness so fantastic. I sometimes feel I'm in mid-air, the shadow of my wings clapping in joy above your children who must love you. Thank you so much. That is the reading part. Ooh, I feel like Toy must be around because I'm crying or something, but I'm so overwhelmed and I'm really happy to have been invited. I can try to look, if you start to write questions, I think I can see them now. If there are questions or things about the photographs in the book or the poems or how we're spending our days, what we're reading, what we're binging on, or anything really. Let's see. Oh my good. There's so many people. I'm Cedric, Kelly, Sharon, Malika. Oh my gosh. Hello. Oh my goodness. I'm so Opal. Hi. I'm just trying to scroll and see names that are popping up. LaKayla, I hope I pronounced your beautiful name properly. Oh my goodness. Miller, thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for these comments. There's so much. I could sit here and read them, but I think I should maybe talk a little bit more. This 2020 and my feelings are just so Cheryl, that's my birthday twin. Sending you hugs too. Wonderful, wonderful woman. Did you see what I did earlier, Cheryl? When I did this, because I keep it close. So I'm doing all of that. If you're in New York, there's this like Betty Saar situation that is happening at the Morgan Library. And I also showed Krista Franklin's Too Much Midnight, which is just an incredible work that I return to frequently, but just thinking of women that I'm holding space with right now. So I don't know, maybe there aren't questions. Oh, at what point did you know it was going to be thank you, Malika. I think when I first began, I would say to do the thing the artist does, which is try to transform or metabolize the pure emotion. to kind of transcribe or translate it, or turn it into something else. I had a bunch of fragments, a bunch of questions, literal just questions I would write down that began to grow into poems. I had a lot of resistance because I think at that point in my cycle of grief, I was still in resistance. I didn't want to accept what had happened. And I think a thing in me, which was almost like a very childlike thing, was like, if I start to write this text, if I start to make this a text or a narrative, if I start to try to say how I feel, or that she had died, then I would really have to accept it, and I have to see the language and see this part of the story happening in front of me, and I really didn't want to do that. Um, Immediately after my mother's death, I had a very hard time reading books, which kind of stranded me and isolated me. I couldn't focus. It would just kind of turn into these like smeared things. And I went to the eye doctor, and the eye doctor was like, "You're fine. It's something else." Um, but eventually, I think when I realized that poems, and I really like this question, when I realized that poems would allow me to actually celebrate my mother and be close to her, and that I could kind of really hear her voice very, very clearly. And if you've lost someone who was so immediate and urgent in you, that need for their voice to kind of continue on after their body has transitioned or crossed is really, really important. So when I began to allow myself to expand this kind of grief of she's gone to she's here and she's present, then I could feel like almost that I wasn't writing alone. And I think that was the thing that made me think like I could write a book and she would be here and other people would get to meet her and hear her the way I continue to hear her. So I think that's what I would say. I was making photographs at the same time because I couldn't write for a long time, but the photographs, them being included as a section in the book with no captioning or no language around them, didn't happen until later in my own process with the book. So thank you. Um, the elegy as form is another question I see here from the beautiful Lauren K. Aline. Um, in the in all of my books, I think that I've written, there is always the presence of the elegy. In Lighting the Shadow, I began to think of kind of the anti-elegy. I was exhausted from this kind of form of, you know, a form of memory, of real active and hard kind of remembering and trying to hold on to the space or voice of others who have left us, um, some of them in a natural circumstance and others in very violent circumstances. Today, I didn't read any of the poems in the in the one part of the last section of Seeing the Body, which deal with the political kind of elegies that are also in the book. When my mother died in 2014, 7 days later, Mike Brown was murdered in Ferguson, and so there was this collapsing of the personal and the intimate with the public and national. And so as I'm trying to make sense of, my mother, mother's leaving me, I'm also like in the street protesting. And so I was interested to see how the elegy, the form of that, could hold the tension of these spaces with a certain kind of intimacy that brought in like a kind of a bigger lens, and then my own small individual personal and private lens. um, I I feel that the elegy and Seeing the Body is just a very different kind of occupation of the elegy than I had um, attempted in the past. And I think I kept a lot of distance and space in the past between myself and the form, and the kind of form that the elegy is, and that it can really stretch or really constrict, appeals to me. But in Seeing the Body, the vulnerability of the elegy, and really like taking it into my body and really embodying it felt like I wasn't hiding from the form um, anymore. And not to say that I hid in it before, but that it just really got really raw for me. And I had to do a lot of internal work before I could even really think about the form or think about the kind of learned intelligence that, to say, oh, this is the form, or this is the shape, or this is the body for these emotions. um so that I'd say that with the elegy. I think also one of the ways that my publishers and they were really great about not freaking out that I had like this whole section of photographs in the book, but this kind of word that is now used about seeing the body, which is hybrid. And I've started to really lean into that and think about, that being some kind of trajectory for my work. And so the elegy is hybrid because it's kind of doing all of these, it's living, but at the same time it's remembering, or it's also dying or resurrecting or exhuming things. And then the space of the elegy to have, grief, laughter, rage, all of these things in it. Just it's always appealed to me in that way. Um, I like Kelly's question, which I'm seeing here, about ethical dilemmas. Because I think that's something important that all of us are constantly engaging as we're, writing family poems about family, or close friends or things like that. For me, for seeing the body, one of my rules was that I would never do any persona or write, kind of occupy my mother's body, or her psyche or sensibility. Like I could talk about things she said to me, and like that's her own voice, the things that I recount that she said to me. um, I also was very clear about my book. I'm the eldest of four children. My siblings are really kick ass and amazing, but I didn't ever want to encroach on their memories or their perspectives or their renderings of what happened. So I really narrowed my focus, as far as what I would say about my family, being mindful of their need for their privacy and their own personal relationship with their grief. Um, and I felt, for me, it was like, I just felt like this was too important for me to be reckless or careless with in any way. And mostly during my process, when I actually felt nervous to reveal things about myself and my own life, it was that mother voice that said, you know, you can't hide anymore. Just say it. Like, you can't have any shame. And you tell them, and don't wait for someone to tell you to feel bad about yourself, or that you're not valuable or worthy, or this or that. I'm probably the hardest person in the world on myself anyway, and so I know that too. But ethically, I think I didn't feel like I was asking anyone's permission, whether I should or could write about something, and I won't know. But I felt like when my I remember my brother read the book, and he was just, it was like this wonderful thing, because he's like, yeah, I didn't even remember that. And so in some ways he was like, wow, your memory, the things that you remembered and held on to, are now in a space where he can access them as well. I think it's hard for my siblings and my father to hear the poems, and it's hard for me to read them. I mean, even I've been reading them since June, and I still will really feel something catch in my throat. And I want it to be that way. I want the feeling to be this immediate conversation that I get to have with her, and the woman I was, when I wrote the book, and the daughter I was, who raced to be at her mother's bedside. I don't want to forget those different hearts in me. So that's what I would say as far as like ethical. My mother was very, very private, and at the same time, um, toward the end of her life, more than once, she kept saying, when are you going to write my story? When are you going to write about me? And then sometimes, being the amazing black mama she was like, don't write about me. Don't tell my business in the streets. And so I felt I felt that the way that I have rendered her is fair, and accurate. And there's so much that's not there that I wish I could share, but it's one book, and she's always with me now. So she's listening. Oh, Dorothy, hello. I miss Oxford, Mississippi too. Oxford, Mississippi, I'll just mention very briefly. I was in Oxford, Mississippi, working on photographs, these kind of formal self portraits. I'd been there for some time, and I was working on a project connected to Roanoke and William Faulkner, when I got this call from Jefferson Hospital in Philadelphia that my mother's health had rapidly deteriorated and I needed to get home right away. And so I flew from Memphis to Philadelphia and kind of ran to the hospital. Um, and then she died a few hours later. So I was in Oxford, Mississippi, and I had been in Mississippi for a month. I'd gone to Money, Mississippi because I wanted to see the Bryant store where with the kind of Emmett Till narrative of what had happened. I was doing all these other things of excavation, visual excavation, and then this thing happened. And so I'm very Oxford, Mississippi will always be a part of my story, as will Gloucester, Mississippi, which was another place I spent a lot of time during that year. And then I came back to Mississippi exactly after my mother died to try to do this kind of circular ritual. Um, let's see. Yeah, I love the Gloucester project. And I feel like I'm not hitting the right button to look and see what is being asked of me. Oh, okay, Cedric. Hey, I hope you and your family are doing well. Um, so yeah, so you asked me about Promise. What I can say is that I'm working on Promise. It's my first novel. I think a lot of people don't know, and I'm thinking of Cave Canem because that's where you and I met. That prior to Cave Canem and even in grad school at Sarah Lawrence, I actually was a fiction. Fiction was my concentration, and I never stopped writing fiction. I would just put it in drawers and like let it sit. I just didn't feel that I had found the voice or the chops to like engage it the way I wanted to. Um, so uh, Promise is forthcoming. It's my debut novel. It's about two um, young Black sisters who are living in the late 50s and are coming of age in civil rights movement, and the encounters that they face as they're trying to claim their value and space in a world that is not invested in their happiness, their intelligence, their identity in any way, shape, or form. Um, and so, how they kind of arrive at their own power are some of the things that the novel's concerned with. Writing a novel, I will tell you, is not like writing a book of poems. It's a learning curve that I'm enjoying as I crawl along it, but I'm really excited for it. Because of the pandemic, I don't have a date yet. I was fortunate enough to have the book taken by Random House, and I have a wonderful editor there. And it's again, it feels like a rebirth or a starting of a new language for me, a new interface of kind of tools, or this word hybrid or polymath or something where you know prose waited while I was doing all these things with poems, and I will return to poems because I'm always writing poems. But the novel is not a person who, it's not one of your little friends. You have to really devote yourself and show up every day to do the work. And so the last few years for me have been doing that work. So I always knew that it was a novel. I have a lot of novels that no one will ever see the light of day, that no one will ever see. But this one, I like her. I like her. She's a good novel, I hope. And so I look forward to, you know, putting that out in the world one of these post pandemic days. So thank you for that question about promise, and stay safe. So I don't know. I think there's not. We're at the 3 o'clock mark, and I think I would like to close just saying thank you and wishing you and your loved ones and your family safety and strength and ways to find joy as much as you can. And I feel grateful to have so many amazing poets show up and kind of hold space with me today. And again, thank you to Furious Flower Poetry Center, to Dr. Gabin, to Lauren, to all of the James Madison, of course, and the places that are supporting us doing our work, like the NEA and other resources. So I will, I guess I'll see you guys on the frequencies, and do something fun this weekend if you can. Self care, take good care of yourselves. So it's so weird because I have to like say goodbye um, without someone saying goodbye to me or waving. But I'm going to just wish you peace and take good care. Thank you.